Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about the news, the latest Kickstarters, and all of the such that's going on in the Savage Worlds community. So thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to go over the newsletter, as always. Any additional news, which I don't think I have any additional news today. We're going to go over some Kickstarters, and we're going to talk about, after all that's done, we're talking about teaching new players Savage Worlds, and I'm going to give you a specific example of what kind of things we're talking about. I post a comment here and it's not letting me. There we go. So we're going to give some specific examples of something that's going on in my one shot I'm doing this weekend, but we'll get into that later. If you have tips for teaching new players Savage Worlds, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below or to the side or wherever the comments are for you. I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you've gone about teaching players, where you start, where you kind of end, and how you go about just teaching players the game. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the news. So I'm gonna go ahead and change which tab I am sharing. This is the one piece of live streaming that I'm always finding to be the most difficult. Let's go ahead and head over to the newsletter here. Perfect. And so let's make it bigger. No, that makes it smaller. Don't want it smaller. Let's go ahead and just go back to there. So first off in the newsletter, as we kind of mentioned last week, the Savage Saturday Cinema, the latest one, this is the second one in the series. It's Thunder on the Mountain, and specifically it is a Deadlands adventure. So it is designed in the world of Deadlands. If you're not familiar with Deadlands and you're in the Savage Worlds community, I don't know where you've been. Like, Deadlands is a big part of the history of Savage Worlds. I definitely recommend checking it out. And the one that we're doing, they've released this past week. I don't know if it's actually released just because I was looking for the announcement and didn't see it until it came in the newsletter. Maybe it just happened in the newsletter. So there's the announcement right there. Go ahead and check it out. It is $10. It's a fully encompassed adventure. It has everything you need to play the game, play this adventure, pre-generated characters, the adventure itself. Now you do, I believe, need the core rulebook. You need a copy of the core rules. Because it happens in Deadlands, it's recommended that you have the Deadlands setting book, but it's not required. So you don't need to have it. But if you want to get a taste of Deadlands and you have the core rulebook for Savage Worlds, you can kind of just grab this, try it out, see how you think, and then just enjoy the game. Next up is in the newsletter is the Kickstarter for the Sci-Fi Companion. We'll go over that later. There is also a call for anyone who's going to be at Gamehole Con, which is in Madison, Wisconsin. It's all the way out in October, so you have plenty of time to look into this if you're wanting to go. But Gamehole Con, October 17th to the 20th in Madison, Wisconsin. There's going to be a group called the Savage Alliance, which is a group of Savage Worlds GMs, Game Masters, getting together and just talking about Savage Worlds and hanging out. So go ahead and check that out and go ahead and join that if you're going to be, if you're out that way and you want to go meet some other Savage Worlds players. It's a great place for you to do so. There is a form that if you want to be part of this this dedicated event space for the Savage Alliance, you do need to fill out the form just so that you can enter. It's the form for entering your games, to be clear. So there's information in the newsletter. Go check the newsletter out. We'll go ahead and put a copy of the newsletter in the stream so you guys all can access it. All right, and then I'll put this. I should really put this in the show notes too. And I apologize, I haven't been doing that. Roll20 still has their GM Day stuff going on. There is a excellent blog post titled GM's Day Spotlights Wisdom from Industry Pros. And according to the newsletter, there's some stuff from Christopher Landauer in it. I haven't had time since getting this newsletter to go ahead and read it. If you know Landauer, he does a lot of stuff in the marketing team, or I believe, he's the director of marketing over at Pinnacle. So he's on live stream sometimes when they do the non-Savage Universe stuff. So he's a cool guy. If you want to go read up on what he said, that'd be awesome. They are still doing the Savage Worlds Core Rules bundle, and a few other bundles where you can get a bunch of the assets that you need to run Savage Worlds inside of Roll20 easily and smoothly. So I keep thinking about getting it. I am likely going to get it because I really want the option to be able to run Roll20 Savage Worlds eventually if I need to. Right now, my games are in person, so I have to worry about that currently, but I think in the future I might have to. So I'm going to pick that up at some point. The Savage Universe stream this week, continuing their sci-fi series in celebration, the Sci-Fi Companion. They're going to be talking with Veiled Fury Entertainment. So go check that out on their Twitch channel. They do stream it to, I think, Facebook and YouTube as well. I usually watch it on YouTube just because that's just where I live, is more YouTube. But go ahead and check out that live stream and just kind of see what they talk about. And then at the end of all the newsletters, we have our crowdfunding updates. Orders are shipping for Legend Ghost Mountain. We have Necessary Evil 3, which is awaiting shipping estimates. The pledge manager for the Savage Worlds 20th anniversary celebration, which I backed. Their pledge manager is closing on the 15th, so that is in 3 days. So go ahead and just go over there, make sure your pledge manager is filled out, make sure you have the right address in there, make sure that you have everything set up right. Any last minute additional pledges you want to make, just so that you can make sure you can get it. But you don't want to order it and then not get it, because that'd be kind of lame. The Deadlands Night Train still just on digital files, and then the Science Fiction Companion. Let's go ahead and jump into the Kickstarter to talk about that. Let me go ahead and stop the sharing here, and let's go over to. I always got to find this again. All right. So Kickstarter for the Sci-Fi Companion, it ends March 21st. So we are about a week away. It's a little bit less, a little bit more than a week. But nevertheless, we are a week away. So if you have not backed it yet, I highly recommend you do so. And I forgot to bring up the Kickstarter for the Sci-Fi Companion. So let me go ahead and do that just kind of because I'm curious to see where we're at. The numbers have been quite high. So I really want to see where we're at with that Science Fiction Companion. And we are at $255,000 of the $4,000 goal with 2,665 backers. So 8 days to go. Go check that out if you haven't already. Go sign up. Go back it. I want the Sci-Fi Companion. I have a hard time understanding people who don't, but that's fine. You do you. Other Kickstarters happening. Cocaine Owlbear ends March 22nd, so that's the day after. That's Friday, March 22nd. It is just a game of Cocaine Owlbear, but set to Savage Worlds. I recommend you go ahead and check that out as well. And then the last one, this is one that's coming up. This is Street Wolves. That starts Tuesday, April 2nd. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I thought Street Wolves was already out. It is. And there is also a Jumpstart available. I put both links in the show notes for tonight. There's a link to the Jumpstart as well as a link to the full core rule set. This Kickstarter, from my understanding, is to get the book into print, get some additional kind of updates to the game put out there. I do have some details here. Let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, sorry. This is gonna be there's gonna be an ability to get a printed version of the Jumpstart, all that kind of stuff. If you have bought the PDF though already, Paul over at Tabletop Cat Games did want me to kind of let you guys know that if you've bought the PDF already and you back the Kickstarter, there is going to be a few extra things that you can get from the Kickstarter because you already have the PDF. I'm not sure the details how that's going to work, but he did want to kind of make sure those details were announced. So if you get the PDF already, if you get the PDF from Draw Through RPG, you still have options and additional things that you can get because you already got it through the Kickstarter. So that starts April 2nd. So look out for that. Extremely excited for it. I read through the Jumpstart again last night, and it's definitely an interesting take. I feel like I can picture a movie that's like it, and yet when I actually try to think of what movie that is, I haven't been able to think of it. So if you know what movie captures, and actually probably clarify what Street Wolves is, it is a 80s synthwave retro future setting that's kind of taking into account the Cold War. I believe that there's some Cold War stuff going on there. It takes place in 1987, but there's it's a slightly futuristic 1987 with a lot of neon and some other few things. But if you want to check out the Jumpstart, again, the link is down below. It just asks, it's a pay what you want, so just pay whatever you want for it, or you can pay nothing if you just want to try the Jumpstart. But go and check the link down below to take a look at this game. All right, so let's go ahead and see what you all have here. Yeah, Whiskey, Hamster Doom did mention that Whiskey and Wildcards just did a pretty in-depth review of Street Wolves, and they did Johnny Walker Blue. For those who care, I am also drinking whiskey tonight. This is ancient age, so cheers all. Let's see here. All right, so let's go ahead and head into the main topic. Oh, I'm teaching a bunch of players Savage Worlds this weekend, and they all have different levels of experience. So I'm going to kind of go over what exactly is happening. So I have my sister-in-law, my wife and my sister-in-law play in a game with my wife's uncle and my wife's cousin-in-law. I think that's technically how it is. Her cousin's husband, and then my brother-in-law. And that's a 5e game currently. But my sister-in-law is going to be taking over once their current 5e game is over, and she's interested in trying out Savage Worlds. And so, like, yeah, I'll happily run Savage Worlds for you. I'll be happy to teach you Savage Worlds, and you can kind of see what Savage Worlds has to offer. Because she mentioned that she kind of wants more of a more narrative game, more focused on narratives. I think personally, I find that Savage Worlds, for me, I find it easier to do more narrative stuff. Partially because there's just nice mechanics around certain narrative things to kind of ensure a certain path or what have you, for players and for the GM to kind of like be clear on success and failure. Either way, we said we try it out, and so I gathered a group of players to play with us. So my wife's going to play, who has played a decent amount of 5e. She has played Savage Worlds Adventure Edition a few times, but not, because we basically like take turns playing. She plays on Mondays, I play on Thursdays. She plays 5e, I play Savage Worlds. She's only played a few sessions in Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, but she knows the basic concept of it. I then have another player that is joining us. She's played 5e, she's played Pathfinder, she's played a slew of different genres and games. And when it comes to Savage Worlds, she actually played a whole entire campaign with me in Savage Worlds Deluxe Explorers Edition with Last Parsec. So she's played the whole entire one of the Last Parsec campaigns with me, and she's done Savage Worlds before, but she has not done Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. And so there's her. Then there's my sister-in-law, who is, as far as I'm aware, has only ever played 5th edition. So there's that experience level of she's played RPGs before. She's only played 5th edition. So there's a different experience level as I try to teach her Savage Worlds. Then there's the last player who will be joining us, and that's going to be my future sister-in-law. And she has never played a single tabletop role-playing game in her life. But she was interested enough to play with us. And so I have this interesting situation where I have a lot of different experience levels when it comes to Savage Worlds. I have someone who's played some Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, but not a whole lot. I have someone who has played Deluxe Edition, but has never played Adventure Edition. I have someone who's only played 5e, but never Savage Worlds. And I have someone who hasn't played at all. So there's an interesting thing going on there. And so what I decided to do, sorry, I kind of looked at the comments real quick and laughed at Hamster Doom. He says, I'm going to get to his other comment as well, but he says, describe what bennies do and then let the bennies flow. And that's always good advice. So what am I going to do? Well, I decided I had a couple games I wanted to play. I definitely knew that based on what I know of, I think the players that I'm playing with, they're going to be great role players. I'll see my sister-in-law or my future sister-in-law who has never played a game. It might take her a little while to get out of her comfort zone. Because I find that's almost always true for new players who are completely new to role-playing games, is that takes them some time to kind of get into the mood and enter into getting out of their comfort zone a little bit, or into their comfort zone of role-playing their character. But I wanted to find a game that was going to kind of fit what was going on there. I didn't want a dungeon crawl or some sort of hex crawl, just like going through a dungeon is fight. That's not the kind of game that I know my players that I'm having this weekend want to play. So I wanted a game that's going to have a little more intrigue, some mystery, some more investigation, and a little more open-ended. At first, my original plan was to do it was it Secret? Man, I forget the. Oh, it's right here. Shadows of the Sacred Hills by Peter Saloom. He did an interview over at Savage Worlds GM recently about how to become a Savage Worlds ace or a licensee. I had the adventure all printed out because this is what I was going to run. And then talking to everyone, it seems like they might actually would prefer to do some sort of fantasy game. So I was like, okay, you won't do Weird West. I really want to do this still. I'm sorry, Peter. I want to run this. I have it all printed out and everything. But so what game I was going to do instead? Well, I decided that instead, what we'll do is I was going to do the City Guard Chronicles. If you're not familiar with City Guard Chronicles, there's 3 of them where you play as city guardsmen, and it's in a kind of like just a city. It's a big city. They call it the city. It's full of corruption and everything, and you can place it in kind of these adventures in pretty much any large city of your setting of your choosing. But it just takes place generically in the city, and you play as city guards who are investigating issues. And so that's the game I decided to play because it's you start out with a crime, you're investigating, you're finding leads, you're going out talking to people, you're investigating the crime scene, you're interrogating people, you're doing all these different things, and it allows you to kind of like flesh out all the different skills and such that you can use, what information you can figure out, and the way it's written, or at least the first one, which we're doing, is the case of the misguided lover. It's the first one in the series, so I just wanted to start the first one and then move my way through. Kind of just go through that, and then let them kind of explore on their own, give them a little more sandbox feel to kind of do whatever they want. These are the kind of players I know that are willing to kind of do whatever they want, and will pick up on threads and are happy to pick on the right threads or be okay with not choosing the right threads, and to just explore the game a little bit before actually in combat, because the combat in this game, or in this particular adventure, there's a combat at the beginning I'm going to run as a quick encounter, just because I don't really want to just start these new players off right away with combat, because I feel like that combat, in my opinion, is the not the thing that I want to start with, right? There's a lot more things going on in combat. There's a lot more things that are a little more complicated. It's not as straightforward as, hey, let's talk about the skill dice. You have different ranks. You just find the dice that matches the skill I'm calling for. Hey, I'm calling for healing. You have a D6 in healing. Okay, just take a D6, take your wild die, and roll. Did you get a 4? Or did you ace at all? It's a little more simpler to kind of explain those simple rules than to kind of go into combat. So I'm going to do the first thing as a quick encounter, and then we're going to do the adventure. There's a few places where there could be combat, and then usually, based on the way the adventure is written, combat is at the end. And so at the very end, that's when we kind of get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, let's do combat. And so that's where I'm going to head with it. Now, I do want to, when I go about explaining Savage Worlds, before we actually start the game, I want to explain the rules to everybody involved so that they understand how the game works. Now, for my wife, who's played some Savage Worlds before, I think for the most part, she's actually going to be okay. I don't think there's going to be too much to explain. Because she hasn't played a whole lot of it, she may need reminded of certain particular rules, like how to, especially in combat, like, hey, can I just do this? Like, how do I do this? How many what actions do I have? She may forget that there's no bonus action or no reaction or anything like that. Those kind of things are the kind of thing that we may have to be worried about, and maybe explaining the initiative system to her again. But something that's I think is fairly simple. I can grasp with her. The player who has played a lot of Savage Worlds in the past, or played some Savage Worlds in the past, Deluxe Edition, it's just going to be kind of, I think for the most part, she's actually going to be okay as well, right? I would say that Deluxe Edition to Adventure Edition, there's about 80% the same stuff. And again, the main place I'm concerned about there being confusion is actually, again, in combat. Just because a lot of the changes that did happen in the skills section were just condensing skills, and I don't think she's necessarily going to remember what skills. This was we're talking about a game we played like 7 years ago at this point, at least. So I don't think she's going to remember all the skills that were there. So when we have the consolidated skills that Adventure Edition has, I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue for her to not remember. Like, okay, what do I need to roll? I say, hey, you just need to roll athletics. Like, cool, grab, not a problem. The place where I do see an issue occurring is, again, like I said, combat. In Deluxe Edition, there was not really a set amount of rules that you had to do. It was you could do basically as many actions as you wanted, but every action beyond the first accrued a -2 penalty to all of them. So if you somehow declared 8 actions, that would be a -14 to all your rolls. Probably don't want to do that. And the way they did it, and please, guys, if you correct me if I'm misremembering this, because I am realizing that I'm just pulling this from memory. I haven't read this recently. I do have the Deluxe Edition book back there now for my reference. But essentially, like if you wanted to attack twice, you couldn't go attack with one hand. It'd be like attack with one hand, attack with offhand, and then whatever other actions. You basically were limited to essentially like how many limbs that you could theoretically use as an action. Now, in Savage Adventure Edition, you're limited to your max 3 actions. Now, that being said, I'm not actually that worried about this being a problem. Just because most players, even my current group, rarely go above 1, sometimes 2, and I almost never see 3 actions in a single turn. Now, you guys may want to see it differently, but yes. And so combat is one of those areas where I see a little more potential of things being a little more complicated for them, but not terribly. For the player who's played for the player who's played Dungeons and Dragons in the past, it's going to be more about talking about, at least not talking about combat, talking about normal play things, is just clearly explaining how we determine success. In Dungeons and Dragons, you have a DC, or in combat, an AC that you roll, you add your modifier, and that's your total. If you're above there, you succeed. And that's pretty straightforward. In Savage Worlds, obviously, you're going to be choosing your die that matches the skill you're rolling. And take your wild die, you're going to roll, apply any modifiers, if there are any. There doesn't necessarily have to be any, and in most cases, there probably isn't going to be. There might be some like cover modifiers or some sort of maybe modifiers you notice because someone, they see on the DM's whim, but they're going to know those modifiers ahead of time. And then if you roll above a 4, you succeed. And if you get a raise, depending on the situation, I might give you more information. You might succeed even better in a different way. And just it is more like clear, like what the success is right away. Now, personally, when I play Dungeons and Dragons and DM, I try to give them a DC ahead of time. You say, hey, can I roll for this? And I'm like, yes, your DC is this. And I try to make it clear on what information they'll get if they succeed and all that kind of stuff. Now, not all GMs play like that when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, but that's the way I play. And part of that's because I know in Savage Worlds, we have a clearly set target number being established by the game. And then for my last player who hasn't played a game at all, this is kind of, I think it's going to be very similar actually to the Dungeons and Dragons player, because we are going there. One player is going from one system that's, I think, enough of a difference between that system and this system to a player who has never played. And all I'm going to really focus on, I'm not really going to talk about most of the edges to them at first. They might read through later and go, oh, I can get a plus bonus to this. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm aware of their abilities so they are aware of it. But for the most part, I'm just going to show them the skills and say, hey, whenever I call for a skill roll, just find the skill, find the die, wild die, roll them. They're going to be 2 separate die. Don't add them together. Ace, etc. So that's kind of my plan on things. But I also wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on how we can do Savage Worlds, how we can teach players. And one of the first things that came up was Hamster Doom said, if I'm playing online, and I don't think this has to be limited online, I'm not sure. Hamster Doom, why are you limiting it to online play? He says, here, read this comic, and then he pulls up the up to 4 players comic describing the rules for Savage Worlds. This is a great comic, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show this to you. Gotta find the right one real quick. And I put a link in the comments. I'll go ahead and share that link in the show notes down below later. But here's the comic. Now, this was written for Deluxe Edition. There's a few things that I think maybe changed, or maybe they didn't change, but they maybe didn't make it super clear. So it just kind of goes over really quickly on basically 2 pages of how does the game work, and a nice comic way of doing it. One of the things I did notice is like here he rolls a 1 and a 1, so a critical failure. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna use a Benny for it. and I don't think they correct him saying, you can't. So yeah, can't use banking on critical failures unless you have the dumb luck setting rule. So that might, I'm not sure if that's a deluxe edition, an adventure edition thing, but nevertheless, this guide is super helpful for kind of teaching the basics of the game, both for how to use skills and attributes, as well as for combat and how combat works with the card system. Now, one of the nice things I'm looking forward to is that I expect that it will be easier to teach combat to the new player than it actually might be to the completely new player. That it might be to teach combat to the not new players. Hamster Doom also said this: I don't want to oversimplify, but for combat, just ask them what they want to do and then let them know what they need to roll. And that's the way I like to go about a lot of my combats in general, is just tell me narratively what your character is trying to do this turn, and then I'll tell you how hard it's going to be, what you need to roll, and if there's anything that they say that maybe go, oh, you're like just kind of going crazy at it. Oh, do you want to use, ask them, like, do you want to use the wild attack option? Give you a +2, but be vulnerable. Explain what the possibilities, but basing that discussion on what they say about the combat. One of the things that I think new players often have a hard time with in combat is understanding the initiative system and understanding hold, because especially, I should say, new players who are coming from other games, understanding we change initiative each round and kind of adjusting to that flow. So I'm looking forward to doing this. If you have any other comments, leave a comment down below. I want to hear your thoughts. My plan after I'd run this game this weekend and kind of do a lot more focus on teaching Savage Worlds to these players of different experience levels is doing a video about how to teach new players Savage Worlds. So go ahead, please leave your comments below. I want to hear what your thoughts are. If you're on YouTube Music and you're listening to the podcast, at some point, just come down, leave a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. But that's all today. Shorter live stream today. I didn't have a whole lot I want to talk about. Next week, though, I want to talk about the magic system of Savage Worlds and comparing it to other magic systems in other role-playing games. I had some discussions recently about how good or how fun, how flexible the magic system is in Savage Worlds compared to, specifically, we were comparing it to 5e. Disagreed on some thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts on the flexibility of the magic system Savage Worlds. If you think there's a lot of options, you think you're limited compared to other systems like 5e, etc. So please want to hear more thoughts about that and more thoughts about this. And until next time, have a good night and stay savage.